select one of these two.
Okay.
Which are, either we would be one. Is that perfect?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do that as the closing.
Thank
So
you.
now I have to find that number.
318.
Thank you.
I think. Yeah, I may be wrong. It's been 8 years since I was a parish minister.
Actually, I'll find it in, oh no, in Doug's. Get broken out in the back, I'll get the back. Well, if you want to play local diamonds, I mean, not local.
I can definitely play.
Play the one you picked, one more step,
I shouldn't.
or you can sing it. Once I do the melody with you once, and then I can do bop, 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 bop.
But no, let's go with we would be one. It's perfect. Bob picked a good one.
Okay, we would be one. When I have that already, okay. You come up here.
I would worship that.
I worship as I can. Yeah. Basically, I just got the two that he picked. So we'll do local guidance as an opener. You're welcome. Mary Catherine. Did you start out as a Catholic?
No, but Mary was my mom's mom and Katherine was my dad's mom.
Okay. Oh, that's nice.
So MK.
And I'm Jacob.
Are you?
Well,
That's great.
my sister's name is Samuel.
Oh,
Yeah, and you know, in the Hebrew tradition, you're named in honor of the very last person in your family to go. Okay, so I'll put this back.
And can I take off my mask up here?
Yes, for sure.
Sounds like we've got a good alternate music.
Sorry, I didn't have my cello out. Uh-oh. I'll be right with you. Good. Let's see, oh heck. Might as well open with some bomb. I can get this straightened out. Okay, pick a Bach, any Bach. You in a cheerful mood or
Cheerful.
cheerful? She always wants cheerful. Okay, something in the major key. All right.
Good morning. It's such a joy this morning to welcome the Reverend Mary Katherine Morn. Reverend Morn has been with us before via Zoom on the wall, and today she's kind of off the wall, and we're so glad to have her with us. Also, I'm happy to welcome my daughter Beth Overton and her husband Brent from Wake Forest down to help the folks with the moving. And can you be exhausted and very grateful at the same time? You can be. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
As usual, we do thank Jackie for that music. And I want to say good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stuart, Florida. Today is April 3rd, 2022. I'm Janet Grote, your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, races, ages, and backgrounds. It's wonderful to see all of our vaccinated members in the sanctuary, and I get my second booster this afternoon. We are on YouTube too. To be put on our email list or to find out more information about us, go to our website at tcuuc.org. Note the email link to request our online newsletter. I guess I can breathe now. Remember to silence your cell phones. We do have visitors today. If you are comfortable, please step up to the mic and introduce yourself. For those of you stepping up, feel free to take your mask off for a moment so we can see your faces. Okay.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Kilpatrick. Linda and Dan are my parents, and I'm a longtime Unitarian. Grew up in the Portland, Oregon Unitarian Church. I was actually telling a lady here that I was a youth delegate in 1986 as they sent me to the United Nations in New York for a disarmament conference. That was before the Berlin Wall came down,
Wow.
So that's how old I am. And so, and so anyway, yeah, it's Unitarian spirit is in my blood for always. And I've been to other Unitarian churches. I lived in North Carolina. I went to the Unitarian church there. And I come and go as my family duties allow. So this morning was one of those mornings that I could come. So, and I've since moved back here. So hopefully I'll be seeing more of you. Thank you.
Oh, welcome, Cheryl. We've heard so much about you. It's great to great to finally see you. Is there anyone else? Any visitors who'd like to introduce themselves? Okay.
Look who's back.
Okay, well, we're going to have some announcements. The first one is, remember, next Sunday, the 10th is our annual congregational meeting. It's important that all full-fledged members attend to elect the new board members and to pass the budget. Is that correct, Bill? Where's Bill? Okay. Join us the first and third Tuesdays at Stewart Veterans Memorial Park downtown at noon for our brown bag lunch. We also meet on the fifth Tuesday, if there is one in a given month. The book club has started reading the 1619 Project, A New Origin Story. This is a book of essays by important thinkers about the impact of African slavery on the founding and history of the United States. If you'd like to join us via Zoom on Wednesdays at 11, contact John Morn. John? Yeah, there's John. John, who is Mary Katherine Morn's sister. No, brother. He's a brother. Oh, you're going to be in trouble. And a big thanks to those who help with the service, Jackie Robbins for our music, our greeters and ushers. Oh, ushers. Bill and Lou, please. And of course, Karina Poloni, and for our tech help back there, and Joanne Leone and Margaret Gregory for the coffee and cookies on the patio if it's not raining. Now we're going to do our chalice lighting, and Reverend Mary Katherine Morn is going to light the candle for us. From the very bottom of existence, I am filled with light energy, shining color to my eyes, warmth to my skin, inspiration to my soul, a sparkling creation of life unfolds. Let us open our senses to the light within and around us, and send it out to the world. Dorothea Kaufman. Got just a few opening words. Home is not where you were born. Home is where all your attempts to escape cease. That was written by Mahmoud Mahfouz, an Egyptian writer who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1988. There's a hunger beyond food that's expressed in food. That's why feeding is always a type of a miracle. It speaks of a bigger desire. William Swing, a retired bishop of the Episcopal Church. I feel the suffering of millions, and yet, when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that cruelty too will end, that peace and tranquility will return once more. Anne Frank. Now we're going to do a hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Thousands, if you cannot sing before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Now we're going to do our affirmation. You're going to first recite, and then we'll sing the second verse.
You'll just have to wait a moment. Okey-doke.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now we'll do our joys and sorrows. Ronnie, can you help move the stones? Let's share our joys and sorrows please step up to the microphone to speak. Tell us your name first and move a stone in our symbolic river of life to mark each joy and sorrow. Are we joyful? Are we sad? Aha.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bill Falk. I'm the president of the board here at the church, and I have been up here the last 2 or 3 Sundays sharing a joy, and Bob always wants it to be personal, so this is a personal joy. To echo something that Jerry Rader, the chair of our pledge drive, had in Friday's update, we have concluded our pledge drive, and I have to tell you, we have concluded it successfully. We have raised a little bit more money than we set as a goal, so good for us. And a second joy I wanted to share with you all is you won't have me up here next Sunday. I'm talking about this. And if you have not yet made a pledge, we welcome it, and you still have time to do so. We encourage you to do so. I want to say one other thing very, very quickly to amplify something Janet Groth said. The annual meeting is going to be next Sunday. We, by our bylaws, are required to be doing this. We should have gotten out the ballots and the budget, but we have been a little remiss in getting this out on time. But we are going to have the meeting next Sunday, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 2 stones. Anyone else? Ronnie.
I told you all about my cousin's husband who has ALS and how poorly he's doing very quickly. But yesterday they had a big celebration of his life because he turned 85, and it was an amazing event. And I hit all his children, grandchildren, even his ex-wife were there. And I couldn't go because it was in Pennsylvania, but I'm so happy he has this one beautiful memory to hold on to, because it's very hard when you're that age. I guess you fade much faster than the younger people with it. But keep him in your thoughts, please.
And Tia.
Hi, my name's Tia Breeding, and for those of you who don't know, my sister is Judith Watt, and I have felt like getting up here every single week to say how joyful I am that our other sister from New Mexico is going to be here in 2 weeks. So I am so excited about that. So that is definitely my joy.
Hi, I'm Linda Shuey, and I just wanted to announce that my granddaughter, Cheryl's daughter, turned 16 on Thursday, and it's truly a miracle. Life is a miracle.
Linda O'Stone. Anyone else? We also need to mention that Jos and Ansi are sharing their 10th anniversary in Portugal, and Irv Betts, today is his birthday. So yes, 2, maybe 3 stones. Okay. And Irv Betts. Yeah. For those whose joys or sorrows are too private to share, know that our hearts are with you. Thank you, Ronnie. And now, Reverend Mary Katherine Morn is going to read a thank you, Climate Strikers.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you, Bob. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you everyone for the warm welcome. I'm so grateful for this chance to be with you and to see your beautiful facility here. It's one of the prettiest UU churches I've ever seen. I'm just delighted and so glad to see all of you this morning and to share this time with my brother. Another thanks. Bob let me know that you all took a collection in support of relief in Ukraine, and on behalf of UUSC and our partners, which I'll talk a little bit about in the sermon, I want to say thank you for that support. We appreciate it so much. And I was glad to hear questions about the march yesterday in Palm Beach, and glad to share after the service with anyone who's interested in hearing more. Rebecca Solnit is one of our contemporary great thinkers. She's an essayist and just a really smart woman. And this is a piece that she wrote several years ago that was published in The Guardian at the time of the first youth climate strike. You remember back then. I love how she speaks to what they are doing, the youth, in their organizing and activism for our planet and our lives together. I want to say to all the climate strikers today, thank you so much for being unreasonable. That is, if reasonable means playing by the rules, and the rules are presumed to be guidelines for what is and is not possible, then you may be told that what you are asking for is impossible or unreasonable. Don't listen. Don't stop. Don't let your dreams shrink by 1 inch. Remember, don't forget that this might be the day and the pivotal year when you rewrite what is possible. They will tell you the rules are that those we see in the news and the parliaments and the boardrooms hold all the power, and you must be nice to them, and perhaps they will give you crumbs or the time of day or just a door slammed in your face. They will tell you that things can only change in tiny increments by predictable means. They're wrong. I am writing you in gratitude and enthusiasm as someone who has lived for almost 6 decades, which has been time enough to see extraordinary change, to see what had been declared impossible happen over and over again, to see regimes topple when ordinary people rise up in nonviolent direct action, to see dramatic expressions of rights in both law and imagination. I don't know what will happen after today, because what will happen is what we make happen. That is why there's a global climate strike today.
We will now have a silent meditation. Don't know if we have a picture for this, but take a deep breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Now we are going to go to the hymn we're so familiar with, Spirit of Life. And as always, we're going to hum one time through our Mass, and then we're going to sing Spirit of Life. time for the offering. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation. After the music begins, will the ushers please step forward to pass the plates?
Music. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Oh, this was some bother.
We do graciously accept the offering. Thank you, Jackie. Now, Reverend Mary Katherine Morn is going to do her sermon, but I don't think she really got a proper introduction as far as her background goes. We know that she is John's sister. That's her claim to fame, but she is head of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, and I'm so glad that she is here and part of us, because for those of you who have not been longtime UUs, we have not focused until very recently on this huge part of what I believe being a Unitarian is. Mary Katherine?
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your agility in leading worship and taking care when the minister doesn't do what the minister is supposed to do. Always grateful for that. My sermon this morning, I'm calling it Faithful Imagination. Many congregations actually follow a kind of theme, a monthly theme project, and when I was visiting Vero Beach last week, I followed the theme that they were using, which was, I think, renewal of faith or something like that. And so I wanted to have a sermon about faith. I'm calling it Faithful Imagination, but it's one of the challenges of not being settled in a congregation, as I was for many years before my work at UU Service Committee, is that I don't have any idea what you might think, what you might be imagining when you're thinking about faith. So I wanted to start, if I may, asking you for a word or two. If you will just shout it out, I can repeat it through the mic, of what faith means to you.
Optimism.
Optimism. From Jackie. One more time. Higher power. Thank you. Trust. Hope. Service. Thank you. Anything's possible. Heart. Thank you.
Spirituality.
spirituality. How about you, Janet? What's one for you?
Love.
Love. We'll take it. When I think of faith, I was reminded of a couple of spiritual leaders who I have looked to in my life, and some words from them have come to mind as I've been thinking about faith over the last several weeks. My congregation is actually a pretty conservative congregation, different from any I've been part of before in Boston, and they actually do a Lent study. And so as part of their Lenten study, they're reading from the Reverend Howard Thurman, a wonderful theologian and activist from the 20th century, who said this was one of the early things in the readings we were doing, that we should cultivate the practice of looking at life with quiet eyes. I love that notion of faith. That is how it is we receive the life that is around us, and looking at life with quiet eyes. And then kind of a companion idea to that comes from William Sloane Coffin, a contemporary of Howard Thurman's, who wrote, "Hope arouses as nothing else can a passion for the possible." So that is a little bit more about not how we receive life, but how we in turn engage in life. Cultivating the capacity to look at life with quiet eyes, and practicing hope, which I really do think is, I think of faith as kind of active hope, not an idea or an emotion, but actively living in hope, a passion for the possible. One more thing that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about hope is what hope is not. And in some ways, this feels more important and instructive to me, and I might as well fess up, even though I am in a room full of Unitarian Universalists, and I know that we sometimes enjoy our cynicism. I will confess to you that my understanding of hope is that it is the opposite of cynicism. As I'm using imagination, that is the opposite of hopelessness. So cynicism is the opposite of faith, and imagination as the opposite of a loss of hope. It's so important to me, this idea of trying not to fall into a cynical way of engaging with life, because I really do believe that is all that the empires and tyrants need to succeed, is our cynicism. They are empowered and emboldened, and what they are able to do is possible by our cynicism. They're counting on it. There are two levels, I think, that this happens both in our personal lives, but also in our community life together. And that's really fundamentally all I want to say this morning, is to affirm the power of spiritual community as a place where faithful imagination can flourish, where we come when we are at risk, which all of us come to times in our lives when we are at risk of losing hope. We come here when we are at risk of losing hope, and when we are paralyzed by cynicism, because that is what happens in our lives when we are cynical, is we are unable to act. One teacher I read wrote that that UUs are unfortunately really good at a kind of sophisticated resignation, kind of, oh well, you know, that kind of cynicism. So in this room, virtual and physical, we borrow strength and courage so that we will not only imagine the possible, but also take the next right step to creating what we know and understand to be possible. We do this on Sunday morning, for one, in one place, in our embrace of one another, whether literal or figurative, and we do it in the stories we tell. The stories we tell matter. And for me, the stories we tell are the source of my strength and courage when I lose strength and when courage is hard to find. So I want to start with a very ancient story, and like many very ancient stories, it is firmly embedded in the religious tradition, in a religious tradition. This one comes from the Hebrew scriptures. It's a story familiar to you as a story of a miracle, but I want us to imagine it in a new way, a story about looking at life with quiet eyes and opening ourselves to what is possible. It was a terrible time in the life of the Israelites. Moses had been promising the slaves in Egypt that God had sent Moses to set them free. For a long time he had promised this, and he tried many things with the help of God, even plagues. But it had taken years and many plagues for them to finally feel they might be able to escape together, finally agree that they would gather all of their courage and follow Moses. And so they set down their enslavement, which took a lot of courage because it was all that they had known. They set it down and they followed Moses out toward freedom, something they had never imagined possible, but were starting to believe maybe. Out of the city, they marched together, but you know who was close on their heels? The Egyptian army. Pharaoh's army was close on their heels, and they watched and looked back in great fear as the army followed them on their march to freedom. And then they arrived, as they knew they would, at the sea, a barrier to their freedom. And they looked around at each other. There was murmuring. Moses looked up, I imagine. I'm telling the story in the tradition of the Midrash, which is the rabbinic tradition of filling in the gaps of a story so that we might find ourselves in it, though we live in such a different time. So this is a midrash. So let's say Moses looked up at the heavens, imploring God, come on, you promised. You called me to this work. What am I to do now with the roaring sea? The Israelites behind him the murmuring was getting more urgent. And Moses knew that they were starting to wonder if slavery might not be so bad. And then suddenly, a hush fell over the crowd. And everyone turned to see an old man walking into the sea, Nahshon. He walked in and the water flowed over his ankles, and he kept walking, and the water rose up over his knees and all the way to his chest. And you could feel in the crowd that people were about to rush to grab Nahshon out of the sea and bring him to safety, or to shout to him to stop, Nahshon, stop. And it was just as the water came right to his chin, the rabbis say, it was only then that the sea parted and a way was made. Of course, ancient people, when they're telling stories, weren't literalists. We know that, right? They used figurative language to tell a story. And the rabbis are trying to teach with this story that it was not necessarily a story about a very unusual weather event or a miracle of God, except in the sense that it is a miracle every time any of us has the courage and the imagination to imagine what hadn't been imagined before. And that was the gift that Nahshon brought to his people. Faithful imagination, looking at life with quiet eyes and the ability to see what is possible, not what is inevitable, not there is always a risk, not what is inevitable, and yet still the willingness to take the next step to building the world that we know must be possible, that we believe must be possible. Taking the next right action toward the world we dream of, a world that embodies our values. Now, I know that you know stories too of people who took the step into the water, even against all the odds, and when all the evidence would have said to stay in the safety of slavery. So I wonder if you might name some of the people, perhaps well-known people to us whose stories are well-known, or perhaps the names of people in this community who have taken action, courageous action, when others were reluctant, who have taken that first step toward a creative solution in community, large or small. What are the names that come to you?
Yes.
Maggie. Rosa Parks. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. One more. I'll take one more. Eleanor Roosevelt and Reverend William Barber of the Poor People's.
Yeah.
Let's lift up Zelensky today. Thank you. For me, 3 people these last weeks come to my mind, and I want to share a little bit about them. Weiwei Nu, Tun Ken, and Myra Dagapa. Weiwei Nu and Tun Ken are from the Rohingya Muslim minority in Myanmar, also known as Burma. Myra Dagapa is a Karen, a Christian from Burma, who recently joined UUSC's staff to do work with our partners in Myanmar and Malaysia and Thailand and Bangladesh. In February of 2020, I had the privilege of traveling with two colleagues from UUSC to visit our partners who have been doing work in Myanmar for decades toward an inclusive democracy, and particularly in the last 10 years toward protecting, working to support the Rohingya minority, who in 2007 experienced a horrific genocide at the hands of the Burmese military. We have been striving for these years since 2016, 2017, demanding that the US government and the United Nations declare the actions of the military a genocide so that we can draw attention to what happened to the Rohingya minority there, and also move toward accountability. In 2020, it was just before the pandemic, but I was so deeply inspired to meet these activists and learn their stories of imagining what might be possible despite ridiculous odds against them. That was 2 years ago in February. Last month, Secretary Anthony Blinken invited Weiwei Nu, Tun Kin, and Myra Dagapa, among others, to join him at the U.S. Holocaust Museum for an announcement that the United States had made a declaration that the military actions against the Rohingya qualified as genocide. It's not the whole work that needs to be done, but it is a step that we really didn't imagine was possible right now. And to see the faces of these activists and UUSC partners standing with Secretary Blinken and hearing these words that they had worked so hard to make true be spoken, it was incredibly inspiring, and I was reminded of Nishan, taking those first steps into the water and leading the way. it was a difficult time. This announcement came just about 2 weeks ago. And of course, the war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, had already happened, so most everyone was focusing attention on what was happening in Ukraine. And though it is difficult and painful, I have to say that I feel appreciation that the administration made this decision to lift up this other part of the world where terrible military assault has been going on in the past year since the coup happened. I left that February out. February 1 year ago was the military coup unseating the democratically elected government in Burma and taking the plan right out of the Trump playbook, declaring the election a fraud and just seizing power. And since that time, the violence, the destruction of villages, the refugee crisis has been incredibly severe in Myanmar. And yet, how many of us have seen much about it? It's so important, even as we hold our incredible fear and concern for the people of Ukraine and the surrounding areas, to remember that this kind of violence and oppression is indeed happening all around the world. It's a privilege at UUSC to have relationships with communities who are working for change and freedom in the face of such horrendous odds. And I know you have arrived here probably having looked at the newspaper or watched the latest TV accounts of the incredibly devastating and terrifying actions of Putin's army in Ukraine. And I think it is important for us to hold this as we hold the peoples of the world in our hearts and our prayers and our concern. If you pray, could we take just a few moments, a few breaths, to hold the people of Ukraine, to sit in quiet solidarity with their struggle. And if you pray, to pray, or simply to be still, acknowledging the frightful situation there, the devastation. The future is always unknown. Faithful imagination is a powerful practice of holding hope without turning away from the truth. Faithful imagination is a powerful practice of holding hope without turning away from the truth. I want to share a poem. Is it okay if I say a word I don't normally say in polite conversation? I don't know you all very well. I'm going to use the poet's words. Just so warning you. Heads up. This is a poem by Maggie Smith called Good Bones. Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I will keep from my children. The world is at least half terrible, and that's a conservative estimate, though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there is a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child broken. Life is short and the world is at least half terrible, and for every kind stranger there is one who would break you, though I keep this from my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking you through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful. You could make this place beautiful. The future is always unknown. Faithful imagination is the powerful practice of holding hope without turning away from the truth. Today, at UUSC, we are supporting and being inspired by feminist activists in Poland, insisting they are that relief reaches people who do not ordinarily receive relief. Refugees who are people of color, people with disability, LGBTQ refugees are receiving support from UUSC's partner, the FEM Fund in Poland. They are organizing and networking and listening to the people most affected by the harm being done. There is the top and most seen layer of harm, and then as that impacts people who are already oppressed because of their identities, the harm multiplies. That's what we mean when we talk about intersectionality. But there's another side to that. Just as intersectionality compounds harm, when we approach relief and recovery with intersectionality, we compound the recovery. I'm so grateful to be part of UUSC, where this is the philosophy we use in responding to crises like the one we are facing today in Ukraine. Friends, this place, this whole place, every corner of this place, I believe, could be beautiful. Already, such good bones. Just look around. The future is always unknown. May we build our capacity for faithful imagination so that tomorrow, despite all that we know, we will make this place more beautiful and more just and more loving. We have all that we need. We have each other. Let's make this place more beautiful together. May it be so. Amen.
We're now going to do hymn number 168, One More Step.
No, we aren't.
We're doing 318.
We are doing a different hymn,
318.
which is 318, We Would Be One,
One. Oh, we
which
would
is
be
the
one?
theme from Finlandia.
Oh, okay.
And I had the privilege of playing this, the full symphonic work with Nelson Mandela there as the guest. And he came up and he conducted us in the South African national anthem. Or no, maybe he did the U.S. national anthem, and Jerry Schwartz did whatever it was. They did each other's anthems, and we performed it. But this piece is all about a country taking back its freedom, and a people taking back their independence, their freedom to live and love as they please. We Would Be One, 318.
You're going to need your hymnals, and the number is
318.
318. That was nice. Before my closing words, this was something that Reverend Morn did not put me up to, but you should know, if you would like to join UUSC, go online to uusc.org. And it's really a part of UUism that you should join, you should be part of. Now, we're going to do our closing words, and Mary Katherine will extinguish the candle. No matter how weak or frightened we may feel, we each have gifts that can make a difference in the world. In this coming week, may you do at least one thing to support the broken, to welcome the stranger, to celebrate what is worthy, to do the work of justice and love. Be strong, be connected. Each day, act so you may be a little more whole. Maureen Killerun. And of course, we're going to have coffee on the patio. We need to move the chairs out. It looks like it's not raining, so I think we can go outside today.
Uh-oh.